Good morning. Happy Monday. Today is April 11th. It's almost springtime in the Twin Cities, and I am excited to be here with you guys today. I've got hopefully some optimistic, fun news for you guys. A couple national headlines that I wanted to talk through this week, but just give you a lay of the land and what we're seeing in the Twin Cities over the last couple of weeks. The weather started to pick up, things are starting to get a little more active again, and real estate is getting good. So, here we go. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope your week is off to a good start so far, and happy Monday. And without anything else, let's just get into what you're here for. Facts, figures, fun. Let me shift gears here. All right, cool. So here are the numbers from last week. Get the little Zoom thing working. So last week was the highest week that we've seen yet this year in terms of new active listings hitting the MLS. We had 587 new single family houses come online last week, which is a little bit more than the week before, and significantly higher than our 13-week average of about 450. So exciting to see. We thought inventory would start picking up, and it looks to be that way. From a price point standpoint, median price point on the new listings got up almost to 400. Well, it is $400,000 again. So it ticked up a little bit from the week before, but still down quite a bit from what we saw in most of March. I think that number is still going to come down some. I don't know that we're going to go way back anywhere close to where we were last year during the spring and the summer, but I do think price points, generally speaking, as we get more inventory, will be a little bit more reasonable, especially with rates went up even more last week. So, but as it stands now, almost 600 new listings, median price point of 400,000. I started tracking the average price point of new listings. It mirrors the trend, anyways, of what we're seeing up above from the median price point. But if you look at the average price point for all of the new houses that came on the market, we're up to almost $500,000, which is nuts. Now, that's weighted by multi-million-dollar houses that come on the market each week. That's why we look at median instead of average, but still average is super high. I mean, we're well beyond anything we've ever seen in the Twin Cities in terms of price points of houses, which shouldn't be a surprise or new news to anybody if you've tuned in ever to this. Houses that went to pending last week, we had a large jump in houses that went to pending. So we had 620 houses that went to pending status last week. You can see the average for a given week, at least over the last 13 weeks, was 463 houses that went to pending status. So quite a bit more. Again, the important thing to keep track of here is do we have more or less pending houses than new inventory? In this case, yes, we had more houses go to pending than we had new houses come on the market, which just means generally that you're going to start to see supply drop overall, which is kind of what we're seeing. I guess it's pretty close anyways. Closed transactions last week, we had 295 closed transactions. Pretty in line with the average of what we've seen over the last 13 weeks. That number will tick up a lot more as we start cycling through the increases of pending and the increases of inventory that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So nothing too surprising on the close side. Days on market stayed relatively the same. Median days on market for the current active inventory is 22 days. That's been fairly in line for, we'll call it 2 months now. Again, the average for the Twin Cities used to be around 40. So we're still way, way, way under average, but not quite as crazy as it got last year. I do think this number is, well, given rates and everything else that's going on, I think we're going to stay around 20, 22 as a median. But again, I say this every week. If it's a reasonably priced house and it's in nice shape and it's in a nice area, days on market is going to be like 1 or 2. We still see stuff going incredibly fast the first couple of days that it's online. Especially if it's priced even remotely close to being competitive. And then, the last thing I really like to track is what did the house actually sell for versus what was it listed at? So that metric, the ratio that we're looking for is if it's listed at 400,000, did it actually sell for 400 or was it more or less? Last week we saw again very high actual final sales prices versus list price, so 105%, which is really high for this metric. Most of last year we were around 102, 102 and a half, 103 on the high end. We've been north of 104% for quite a few weeks out of the last 13 weeks, and that number is not coming down. By the way, I mean we continue to see multiple offers. We bid on a cabin. We helped a buyer bid on a cabin yesterday, and we were one of 13 offers. Half of the 13 offers were $100,000 over the list price. We don't know yet what it sold for, but it's going to be probably a cash buyer, and probably the metric there, this sold versus list price, is going to be like 120, 130%. So demand is still super strong. There's still a lot of money out there, even with rates and with mortgages and everything that's happening. People are still really, really pushing to get houses. Inventory is still not where it needs to be. It's getting better, but it's still very, very competitive out there. So nothing has changed on that front. Again, make sure that you're working with somebody who is doing this all the time so they can help walk you through what we're seeing in the market, because you can't just throw low offers out on stuff and expect to get them, or even offers at list price, or even offers slightly above list price, unless you have a couple other things that go with it. If you're a seller, please don't try to just throw some random number out there. Like, it really pays in this market to be working with someone or a team that is very involved in it, because it's crazy. It's beyond anything that any of us have ever imagined we would get into. But we're winning, we're making it happen, we're having fun with it. It's just a little more crazy. That's all I got on numbers. I wanted to go through. It's been a couple months since I've looked county by county with you guys, so I'm gonna go through. InfoSparks is a online data visualization tool that realtors have access to, and I'm just gonna go through a couple of county metrics that I like to keep track of and bring you guys up to speed on what I'm seeing in different parts of Twin Cities. So I thought this was crazy. This is median sales price for single family houses in the Twin Cities metro, tracked by month over the last 10 years. So if you bought a house 10 years ago, January, a little over 10 years ago, in 2012, median purchase price in the Twin Cities was $165,000. And you can see what's happened. I mean, this is just 10 years. We'll go back to 11, 10, 9. I mean, it's even lower. So we're on a 12 or 13 year increase, and over the last 3 years, holy cow. Median purchase price throughout all of the Twin Cities, at least according to InfoSparks, which is a little different than how I track it, but median purchase price for the month of March was $375,000. It's just crazy. That's up 12% over the year before, and you can see, I mean, it's more than 100% increase in the last 10 years. Days or months of supply, which is a interesting metric to track. This is usually we like to look at total active inventory that's available at any given point in terms of how many months of supply do we have on the MLS. It used to hover around three months of active inventory, and you can see in 2012, we were at almost 7 months of inventory. That meant a lot of houses available. It was a good time to be a buyer back in 2012. And that number really dropped in 2015. It kind of went up a little bit more. And it's just dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped until where we are today, and where we have been for almost the last 2 years is we're under 2 months of inventory available as we track it on the MLS. Really, we're at 1.1 months of inventory in single family properties throughout the Twin Cities, at least according to, again, the Twin Cities region. They define here. All this is to say is that if you bought a house at all in 2017, 16, 15, 14, any of these months, 8, 9, 10 years ago, you could go on the MLS and you could take your time, and, there's lots of stuff to pick from. You can see why it's such a competitive and hard market right now for a buyer, and why sellers are having just such a heyday right now. There's nothing out there, and there hasn't been for a couple of months. So when we talk about pricing dynamics and what's happening and why is it the way it is, there's no inventory. I mean, it's just supply and demand. And this graph just really clearly shows it. If I look at, we'll pull up Hennepin County, we'll pull up Ramsey County, and let's do Scott County. And we'll see if there's any differences between the counties right now. Not really. So, in fact, it's even more competitive in Ramsey and Scott. So, active months of supply by county. It's probably a little easier to look at it right here with the numbers. Throughout the Twin Cities, again, 1.2 months of supply in the Twin Cities region. In Hennepin County is 1.3. So there's a little more inventory in Hennepin County, but still, compared to historical numbers, it's just insanely low. Ramsey's 1.1, Scott's 1.1. Like this is the fundamental thing that everyone keeps talking. Like this is why everywhere you look throughout the Twin Cities. I mean, just for fun of it, why don't we look at? If I knew how to spell. Here, we'll look at St. Cloud. 1.2. Let's look at Duluth. Do, 2.3. So there's a little more in Duluth. Although Duluth has its own MLS, so this is only going to track some of it. But same phenomenon. Olmsted. 1. It's even worse than the Twin Cities. Blue Earth. 1.6, a little bit higher, but not really. Still under 2 months. So, I mean, this is not just a Twin Cities thing. This is not just a Hennepin County or Ramsey County thing. This is the entire state. You can see every major county is in the same boat we're all in right now. There isn't property. So I wanted to look at. We'll go back to Scott. Let's look at sales price, median sales price. So I like to track this again just to see how does price vary by county. If you're looking at certain counties and you're thinking about moving into Hennepin County, generally speaking, it's going to be a little more expensive. If you're looking to move south of the river, it's going to be even more expensive. Ramsey County historically has been one of the cheaper counties, broadly speaking, to live in the Twin Cities, and that all is still holding true. The Twin Cities average or median price point is starting to get fairly close to Hennepin County's. You can see them starting to converge a little bit here, but all counties are experiencing basically the same. I walked through the months of supply, right? They're all super low, and you're seeing median price points in all the major counties in the Twin Cities going up, and has been for a very, very long time. In fact, forever. I guess it's always been. They've always held this position. Oh, crazy. So Scott County almost hit, at least according to this metric again, $400,000 for median price point last month, while Ramsey still, seems to be the more affordable place. Although Ramsey County is insane. We've been helping a lot of people in certain parts of St. Paul, and it's just nuts and super competitive and expensive. So take all of it with a grain of salt. I call it directional. But yeah, not much has changed from the last time we looked at this other than everything just goes up. My wife is trying to FaceTime me. All right, so that's the lay of the land from a numbers standpoint. We'll jump into some of the news articles that I thought were fun, interesting to look at. So homebuyer sentiment continues to drop. I've heard a lot of headlines over the last 2 weeks that homebuyers are getting sick of the market, sentiment's dropping, they're not interested, they're worried about a crash, all of those things. And so I wanted to talk through it with you guys a little bit and give you my perspective here, because I think this is kind of an important thing to keep in mind, especially if you were entering the real estate game in any way, shape, or form in the next few weeks or month. There's a home purchase sentiment index that's tracked by Fannie Mae, one of the big mortgage players. Essentially, it surveys the American consumers and asks them, how interested are you in purchasing in the next few months, in the next year? how nervous are you about the economy and that sort of stuff. Um, Last month, so for the month of March, the home buyer sentiment hit the lowest reading that it's ever had since 2010. So it was a 73.2. Now, COVID, when the lockdowns happened, sentiment dropped lower. So it was 1 month, but it came right back up. Um, so what this is saying, what the article is trying to say, and some, quite a few national publications are saying this, is that home buyers are gonna just stop. They're not going to pay the prices. They're walking away. They're not going to be in the game. They can't afford it with rates. And look at our chart. We've got the data to prove it. We're not seeing that at all with any of our listings. In fact, we just had a call this morning with the whole team. I talked about the cabin example already, where we had buyers that tried to buy a cabin, which I have another article here next that talks about the vacation market. But there were 13 offers on this cabin. It went on the market on Thursday, 13 offers, and over half of them were 20% over the list price. We had a buyer last week who got into a house in St. Paul, 11 offers. Over half of them were 25% over the list price. 2 weeks ago, we had a buyer that tried to get into a house, 26 offers on a $600,000 house. And the examples go on and on and on. So I think a lot of these articles, it's more gloom and doom, and it's more frustration than it is actual reality. I think sentiment might drop, but that could just be because people are frustrated and they don't think they can get something and they're giving up. If you're a well-qualified buyer, if you're buying within your price point and you're looking at houses that you should be looking at in the first place, it hasn't changed at all. Like, nothing has changed in the last 2 years. It hasn't changed. It's competitive. It's hard. You need to make sure that you're going in with the right financing and the right contract language and the right things in place. And if you do, there's plenty of opportunity. Like, we can still get stuff and help clients out. If you're a seller, I wouldn't be worried about this home buyer sentiment continues to drop, because I just showed you there's 1.1 months of inventory throughout the Twin Cities. It's the lowest it's ever been, ever. So sentiment might drop, but there's there's nothing out there. So I think we're in store for another, I don't know, 6 months at least of the world that we're in right now, of listing houses and selling them fairly quickly and selling them at good prices. If you're a buyer, it got way tougher with mortgage rates going up. So you're going to have to start looking at slightly lower price points than you were before, or you're going to have to find someone that's going to come with cash or help co-sign or do something. And I really think the next 6 months it's going to continue to be this way. So you're going to keep seeing these stories. You're going to keep hearing people gloom and doom where crash is coming. I just, as it stands right now and the numbers I look at literally every single day, I don't see it. So tell me I'm wrong in 6 months if it's here, but otherwise I would say stick to what you're doing, keep going, and we'll help you get there. Shifting gears just slightly, here's another article. Vacation home market starting to change. So this was in Inman, which is a realtor newsletter thing that we have access to. But it's data from Redfin, which is one of the major online sources. And the article says, it looks like the pandemic vacation home boom is coming to an end. Demand for vacation homes dropped sharply in March. This is the second straight month the decline was recorded as mortgages ramped above 5%. The pandemic-induced boom in vacation homes may finally be coming to an end after 2 years of frenzied demand, according to new data. Demand for vacation homes dropped slightly, while demand was still 13% above pre-pandemic levels and will likely remain that way for some time. Experts forecasted an end to the huge flurry of demand seen over the past 2 years as high rates and prices push out some buyers. Yeah, maybe nationally speaking, but we're not seeing that at all here in our market. Again, vacation homes for the Twin Cities are typically going to be cabins, typically in northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, or in the western portion of the state. It's crazy. It's super competitive. There's nothing out there. We see it over and over and over. It is incredibly hot and competitive in our vacation market here. Rates can go up to 5%. Fine, but most people have plenty of cash right now if they're looking for a vacation home, and rates don't really matter when you're buying with a lot of cash. On top of that, Airbnb has popped up everywhere. VRBO is still super, super hot, and a lot of people are planning their vacations using Airbnb and VRBO, going to vacation homes around the Twin Cities, or within an hour or two of the Twin Cities. Like, there's nothing in our market that is signaling that it's slowing down at all. So if you're looking for a cabin right now and you are trying to buy one and you want to get into the Airbnb space, or you just want a cabin to use for your family, like, you better be prepared for, get your finance in line, get ready to go, because it is really it's a tough market right now. I've been working with a really good friend of mine for almost a year trying to find him a cabin in northern Minnesota or northern Wisconsin. And we've seen a few, we've offered on a couple, but there's very little. And again, same boat for him. A lot of them are way over list price with a lot of offers, and it's even more crazy than the home market is right now. So you can read these articles and understand from a national lens, maybe it's slowing, although it's still 13% above pre-pandemic levels. So maybe it's not as uber crazy, but everyone I talk to is super interested in Airbnb, and a lot of investors I know are still looking for Airbnb opportunities throughout the entire country. So I don't think it's really starting to change. I kind of ignore some of these articles. This is kind of a fun article. There's been a tremendous amount of remodeling happening over the last couple of years. COVID lockdowns came and people were forced into their houses and stayed home way more than they used to. They're working from home way more than they ever did in the past. And so lots of people realized, oh crap, my house doesn't work for this situation. So what should I remodel next? This article is going through what are the 10 remodeling projects that brought homeowners the most joy over the last 2 years, and cash. And so I thought I'd go through this with you guys. If you're thinking of remodeling, here's some things to maybe consider. And if you are thinking of remodeling for increase in value of your house, here's some things to think about. So here we go. This was done by the National Association of Realtors. The way that they did the scoring was they calculated a joy score. And so basically they just asked people, how satisfied were you 1 to 10 doing your project? How much joy did it bring you? And so here are the top 10 projects that, or at least the top 10 of the list that had a almost perfect joy score of 10. So first, painting the entire interior of the home. It's kind of enjoyable and fun to paint the whole house and walk into a new room that's freshly painted. I get that one. If you can't do the entire interior of the home, painting one room brings a lot of joy. Adding a new home office, so many people have added offices or turned bedrooms into offices or put up a wall in a large room and turn it into an office. It's kind of cool to have I've got my office here that I'm working in right now that I didn't have 2 years ago. Hardwood floor refinishing, new wood flooring, closet renovations. Yep, we've got one of those coming up. Insulation upgrade. I wouldn't think that would bring a joy of 10, but I guess if it was horrible before. Attic conversion to a living area. We see that a lot in Minneapolis and St. Paul houses. We see a lot of people adding dormers or adding different parts to the roof to create, if you can't do the entire attic and convert it into a living area, maybe you can do part of it and create at least a room up there. So that, I get that. Complete kitchen renovation, only a 9.8, while all the rest of these were 10s. And then just kitchen upgrade of 9.8. So these are the top 10 projects that people found the most enjoyment out of after they were done. On the right side is, were you able to recoup all or most of your cost? And so here's, I guess, the highest return activities you can do. So number one, hardwood floor and refinish. They were able to recover 147% of the cost, which is sweet. New wood flooring. I wouldn't think that would give you a return, but cool. Insulation upgrade was able to return 100%. Basement conversion to a living area, 86%. That's a common one. A lot of people think if they remodel their basement that it's instant equity in their house. It's not. You could put $100,000 into a new basement. It's not going to add $100,000 to the value of your home. And I mean, here the article shows it. On average, at least these folks got 86% of the cost recovered. It's probably pretty close. Closet renovation, 83%. Attic conversion to living area, 75%. Complete kitchen renovation, 75%. I would have thought that would have been higher. Bathroom renovation, I would have thought would have been higher. Kitchen upgrade, add in a new bathroom. I thought that would have been higher too. But so if you're thinking about remodeling, here's a list of some things for you to think about. And yeah, fun. I've got one on the list I've got to do, closet renovation. All right, shifting gears. So no more national news. I'm going to shift a little bit to local news here. I thought this was an interesting article that I know a lot of cities have these capabilities right now, but St. Louis Park is going to start using drones. They added two or adding two to their public safety operations. So they have two tethered drones, which I guess the difference here is that the drones St. Louis Park is purchasing they have a cable that connect the drone to the controller, so they can't just fly them all over the city. It's part of a command response team. So a van or a truck will pull up to a scene wherever they need them, and then the drone can only go so far. But they've been approved to buy two tethered drones. I thought this was crazy. $50,000. I mean, I see drones for like $50, $100, $200 online. I can't imagine what a $50,000 drone can do. We'll have a variety of uses from police and fire to mapping and marketing. So, it's coming. More and more cities are going to have these capabilities. I know I live in Plymouth. Plymouth has a drone or a couple of drones that they use for, I'm assuming, much of the same uses as St. Louis Park is going to have. But interestingly, the thing that really caught my attention, the council received 22 public comments on the city's use of drones. Only 3 were opposed, 2 were neutral, and the rest were in favor of it. So it seems like the majority of folks encourage more drones, more surveillance, more capabilities to track things if needed. Curious. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. I do think at some point there's going to be literally hundreds, thousands of drones flying around, delivering stuff and tracking things, and it's a crazy world we're in. St. Louis or St. Paul. We've talked a lot about COVID and state of emergencies and rental restrictions and eviction moratoriums. At least in St. Paul, anyways, it appears that they believe we're close to the end of the pandemic, or at least from a public policy standpoint, not having to have state of emergency anymore. So St. Paul ends its COVID-19 state of emergency. The mayor no longer has the power to issue executive orders. This was kind of a interesting statement at the end. Mayor Carter says after 2 long years, finally being able to end the state of emergency is a huge relief. It'd be interesting how many follow suit. I know Minneapolis has not ended theirs. They can at any point, but they haven't. But St. Paul, maybe they're going to be the first to lead here, and the rest of the cities are going to start dropping this as well. I don't know. I saw an interesting headline, or maybe it was a meme. I think it was an article in one of the major news outlets. But basically it was, while the variant continues this new variant gets even busier and crazier in Europe, much of the world no longer cares, and the U.S. certainly doesn't care at all as they continue to loosen restrictions and get back to normal. So St. Paul, I guess, is taking the lead here and doing it. Cool. Here we go. Get back to normal. One other national news headline, I thought this was interesting to share, because last time I talked about this, it was on the uptick here. And this is a chart of the share of home purchases throughout the entire U.S. that are purchased by an investor. This is something that's tracked by CoreLogic. It's also tracked by Zillow and Redfin and a couple other major online databases. CoreLogic is the backbone to the MLS that realtors use throughout the country. And so when a transaction happens, we can go in and say who the transaction was. Was it cash? Was it financed? Was it a corporation? Was it a person? And you get cool charts like this. So this is a graph showing the share of homes purchased by investors over the last, call it 3 years. And Q4, it dropped quite a bit from where it was. So in October, we hit the highest point that we've seen, I think, ever. And that was 26, almost 27% of homes, all homes throughout the entire country, were bought by an investor. And you can see, really ever since the lockdown, well, there's a lot of fear in the investor community. It was really low. And then once people realized they didn't have to really be afraid anymore, it got absolutely crazy. So pre-pandemic, it was almost 18% of homes were being purchased by investors. We got up to 26%. And now, as of December, it dropped way back down again. So this article is going on to say that it appears that investors are starting to pull back. And especially they found that the large investors, so people who own 100 or more properties, really decreased their purchasing activity the most. Of all purchases made in December, only 20% were done by large investors, which is a 6% decrease from September. Small investors are those who own between 3 and 10. Medium size, those with 10 to 100, grew their activity in Q4 relative to how they did before. So the large players pulled back, the medium players kept going, the small investors essentially were exactly the same. This one, I need to think a little bit more about this, because my philosophy had been, if the large institutional investors still see a ton of runway here and they're still going after things and they're still buying, like they know way more than I ever will. If they buy, chances are it's probably a good time for us to buy. The fact that they've pulled back quite a bit, and that overall investor activity dropped as much as it did in the winter, which is when a ton of investor activity typically happens, because the retail side kind of shuts off a little bit in the winter. It just makes me, I'll come back next week with more thoughts on this, but as it stands right now, I'm not currently buying anything because I'm a little maxed out and we've got too many projects going on. We're still helping a ton of people on the investment side, and I'm still bullish on it, but this has been the only article I've seen that has ever hinted at any sort of slowdown on the investment side over the last year and a half. But I'll give you guys more thoughts next week when I can digest it a little bit more. The only other thing I had that I thought was kind of fun on the food and bev side, Crisp and Green is a fun little salad concept that's primarily in the Twin Cities, but I didn't realize this, they're nationwide. They have 175 stores throughout 19 states, which is cool. And they're headquartered in Wayzata, so local Minnesota company. They have 10 stores right now in Minnesota, and they're going to expand 10 more. My sister sent me a text this morning. Hey, is this that salad place you love? I do. Crisp and Green is really good. There's one in Maple Grove that we like to go to. But it's the thing that I thought was most interesting is you look at the 10 additional locations that they've planned, and it's cities that don't typically get a bunch of new restaurants into them. So Brainerd, Duluth. When I was in Duluth, I lived in Duluth for 6 years. We didn't even have Chipotle yet. Like they were always the last city to get fun, exciting stuff. So Duluth, Mankato, St. Cloud, and then a bunch of Twin Cities. But cool to see them having success and keep going. If you've never been to one, go check them out. I usually get this Thai and Stop Me. That's my favorite one there. But their salads are really good. So fun to see a local based restaurant having a ton of success and expanding. All right, that is the show this week. I hope I gave you guys some good tips and tricks and some things to think about. We say it every week. If you've got questions, if you're looking to buy or sell, if you're in the market, you don't know what to do, you want to talk to somebody, please give us a call. We love to help everyone and anyone on the investment or on their real estate journey. We do, 600 transactions a year. We, one of the big players here in the game, and we love to help. So give me a call, let me know, shoot me a text, drop me an email, drop a comment below. If you want more info on anything that I dove into here, if you want to talk about any of the articles that we talked about a little further, I'd love to know. And until next week, I hope you guys have a fantastic week. It's supposed to be a little crappy weather-wise here, but then getting back to normal, we're going to get out and have fun, and I hope you guys do the same. So until then, take care, and I'll see you later.